It's been more than 75 years since Little Man, a 10,000-pound uranium bomb, was detonated on Hiroshima. It killed more than 140,000 people. Men, women, and children near the epicenter were completely vaporized or burned to death. Firestorms led to people suffocating. Others died in the following weeks, suffering radiation sickness, burns, and other injuries. But despite this horrible picture, you might have heard that the A-bomb actually saved millions of lives by ending the war early. Harry Truman, the president who okayed nuclear weapons being dropped, justified the bombs in 1945 by saying that when you deal with the beast, you have to treat them like a beast. Bill Clinton said that Truman was right to use the bombs in 1995. Barack Obama became the first president to ever visit Hiroshima, but he said America had nothing to apologize for. Even this year, on the 75th anniversary of Hiroshima and Nagasaki's bombing, respected news outlets like the ABC, The Diplomat, and a bunch of others published op-eds which said that vaporizing people and whole cities actually saved people on both sides because it stopped the Allies having to invade Japan. Is this true? The short answer is no. But we're also going to ask another question, which is, was dropping the bomb an act of racism? To quote this US general who advocated for the internment of thousands of Japanese, a Jap is a Jap. But let's back up a bit. Did the A-bomb end the war early? The American government themselves admitted in their own bombing strategic survey that if the bombs had not been dropped in August 1945, Japan would have surrendered by November 1945 anyway. And if that's not convincing enough, leaked documents obtained in 1993 reveal that US intelligence knew that Japan wanted to surrender 3 months before they dropped the bomb on Hiroshima. Then, 3 days later, they bombed Nagasaki, offering no chance for Japan to assess their losses and surrender. So, if it wasn't really about stopping the war, why did they do it? Well, the US needed to test their bomb somewhere. $2 billion, which would be more than $37 billion today, was invested in the Manhattan Project to develop the bomb. Truman's Secretary of State, James Burns, even said that the atom bomb needed to be dropped to show results. Dropping the bombs was also less about defeating the already almost defeated Japanese, and more about showing the rest of the world who was boss in the post-war era. A study by the Japanese Committee on the Atomic Bomb said the A-bombs were needed not so much against Japan, already on the brink of surrender, as to establish clearly America's post-war international position and strategic supremacy in the anticipated Cold War setting. So if the bomb was intended to scare Russia and the rest of the world, why was the target Japan? In April 1945, the director of the Manhattan Project, General Leslie Groves, wrote this in a memo to the American Secretary of War. The target is, and was always expected to be, Japan. In 1943, when the B-29 was chosen to be the carrier plane for the atom bomb, it was chosen because it could fly across the Pacific. When Winston Churchill and Franklin D. Roosevelt met in 1944, it was decided that nuclear weapons wouldn't be used against Germany. The target would be Japan. Was this just because of strategy, or is it because the US government was racist and believed that the Japanese were worth experimenting on? If Japan was a white country who was still a foe, like say Germany for instance, would the US still have dropped the bomb? At the Versailles Conference in 1919, after the First World War, the US and Britain stopped Japan from including a clause on racial equality. During the Second World War, Americans branded the Japanese a racial menace and often depicted them as animals, bugs, rodents, or monkeys. Movies portrayed Japanese soldiers as sadistic. Truman called them beasts, and Churchill called them chicks. Between 1942 and 1946, 120,000 Japanese Americans, many of them who were born in America, were sent to internment camps. Admiral Leahy, one of Roosevelt's close advisors, said that unless we administer a defeat to Japan in the near future, that nation will succeed in combining most of the Asiatic people against the whites. Today, even 75 years later, the cruelty of dropping the atom bomb on a civilian population is still branded as an almost humanitarian effort which ended up saving lives. But was it really?